afternoon, everyone. I hope people are well today. Happy Thanksgiving. And we were not on last Thursday because of the holiday. So I'm very excited to be back to talk to you all and to kind of catch up on where things stand. A lot's been going on in the news. And we've got a couple of special guests. Well, not to say Matt Johnson's not very special, but very, very special is Representative Richard Haggerty. We're just going to dive right into it today because Richard's a busy man and we want to take full advantage of his time. Representative Rich Haggerty represents the cities of Woburn and Reading. He is a member of the House Committee on Global Warming and Climate Change, the Joint Committee on Education, the Joint Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Agriculture, the Joint Committee on Financial Services. I don't know how he has time to do anything with all those committees, although they're probably all Zoom by now, I would think. Maybe we can ask him when we bring him on. Also, forever has been very involved in the Woburn community. Sits on the board of the Woburn Friends of the VNA, the board of the Middlesex County Child Sexual Abuse Prevention Partnership, that's a mouthful, and an active member of Woburn Elks Historical Society, and probably the most important of all, he is a friend of NuPath and my state rep. I think it was my vote that got him reelected. We'll have to ask him if that's true. Representative Richard Haggerty, welcome to NuPath Live. It's good to see you.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you, Dan.
You're looking well, and you said you were coming today from your office here in Woburn. You've got several different offices, but this is your constituent's office in Woburn.
Yeah.
How have you been doing?
Doing great. Like everyone else, trying to stay healthy and trying to keep a low profile. And we got through Thanksgiving in a different kind of way, like so many folks out there and so many families who kind of rethought how they were doing the holiday in order to make sure that we keep our parents, our grandparents, folks who are vulnerable, safe and healthy. And that's, certainly something that we were thinking about. So Haley and I, my wife, we were hanging out. We did our own thing, and it was kind of nice. And we had a great meal, and it was still a special day. So.
Well, I probably shouldn't say this publicly like this, but I rather enjoyed my Thanksgiving too. It was just me and my husband John, and I miss seeing people, but it was nice not having to jet from place to place to place. And I know some other people maybe felt that way too. We want to get back to normal, but it was a different kind of Thanksgiving. Rich, two weeks ago, at our NuPath Live, I think it was, or maybe it was 3, but I had reached out to you at the time. I knew it was probably out of the question. Asked you if you could come and join us to talk to us about the state budget process and what was going on. We at NuPath had a huge outreach to our state representatives regarding several different amendments that we wanted to see passed, part of the advocacy of ADDP at the Providers Council. You are ever a friend of NuPath, but we're currently in debate on that Thursday in the state representatives. Can you kind of bring us up to speed in the past 2 weeks? Where do things stand now? What has happened, and what's your how do you think it's positioning NuPath in our industry?
Sure. So just to kind of give a little bit of context. I mean, not that anybody needs to be reminded of this, but we it's been a very difficult year from a budgetary standpoint of view. And, I think that the state, I think we tried to make an effort to take a step-by-step approach to this budget. We had a couple of, temporary budgets put in place, in fiscal year 21 to get us through the first, 5 months of this year. And, in part, obviously, why we wanted to do that was to make sure that we weren't making, kind of decisions, kind of willy-nilly, but that we were making decisions in a way that was deliberative and careful, given, state tax receipts and all the other variables going on out there, and that we were spending money in areas that we should be spending money in to make sure that we're investing not just in, all the areas that we always do, but also in those areas that were unanticipated related to COVID. So, because of that, we really took, I think, a different approach this year. So our budget that normally is debated in April wasn't debated until November. It came out of the House, I think, supporting DDS and NuPath and everyone, I think, in your industry in a way that perhaps would have been maybe even unthinkable when we were talking about some of the dire projections that were presented in May and June. And I think we were able to kind of take a deep breath and double down and rethink how we were doing our budgeting and put some of the CARES Act funding in from the federal government. And I think that NuPath and I think that DDS overall will come out of the House budget in a good position. We're going to continue to advocate. We're going to continue to fight to make sure that you're getting the support you need across the board, whether it's flexibility on billing, or other things that you guys are always talking with me about. So you have an incredible community within NuPath who always reach out to my office and let me know where you stand. So right now it's in conference committee, the budget. It's between the House and the Senate. Hope is, I think, that you're going to hear more about that in the coming day or so, that it's going to come out, and I think you'll be happy at least with a first look. And we're going to keep pushing to make sure that, like I said, you guys get the support you need and you deserve. So.
Rich, thank you so much for that update. That's helpful, and thank you for your support on behalf of all of us here at NuPath and the people we serve and the families that we support. So it's kind of like a call it dominoes, not really probably the most accurate way, but what happens to the state budget's essential, because then that's how money is sort of allocated to the various departments. And so you have the Department of Developmental Services, the largest, I think, of the different, the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, and so that how the DDS budget comes out is directly linked to what money is made available through the state, right? And yet the state, I think, is as you rightly point out, our tax receipts are low, and due to the pandemic and the shutdown that we experienced earlier, and it felt like some of it was also the uncertainty. Would there be a third stimulus package that would come through? Would there be money that would be allocated to states to help cover the cost of the testing that's been going on and all the resources that have been subsumed by this COVID-19? So part of it's kind of like looking into the crystal ball and say what's going on Capitol Hill. Obviously we can't predict the future, but I guess maybe reading the tea leaves, we're wondering if there was some good news that's coming out, either directly or indirectly. Most of us have probably heard or been in the news last night, this morning, about this bipartisan $908 billion stimulus package that's being sort of bandied about right now, and whether or not the Senate and the House will be able to come to some sort of a compromise. It's not as much as many of the Democrats were looking for, but is this something we can get through now? And can you talk just for a minute about the linkage there, or are you guys that are there that certainly probably have a much better window into what's happening on the federal stage? Are you looking at that, and is that informing any of your thinking about what things could look like in come January 1st or post inauguration, or how does that factor in? Or am I just like grasping at straws right here and thinking that there could be some positive developments because of this?
I think there will be. I think that's part of the reason why we delayed the decision as long as we did, because we were hoping that the federal government would come through. That's kind of why we kicked the can a little bit, because we didn't want to have to make decisions. We didn't want to make one decision and then find out that a chunk of money was coming from the feds, and then have to kind of start scrambling again. So that's part of the reason why I think we delayed the final budgetary decisions. The federal government didn't act. They did not provide support for state and local governments. And that's why we ultimately took up our budget on our own, and that's okay. But as you said, there's a bipartisan group right now who have put together a $900+ billion package, another federal stimulus effort, everything from I think $300 per week and an extension of the unemployment for folks, because that's something that is really, really important that a lot of folks aren't talking about yet, but when you get 26 weeks from the state, usually for unemployment, then you get an additional 13 during difficult economic times from the federal government. And when you put those two numbers together, we're heading towards the end of the year, and that's about the time, 39 weeks or so, when COVID, of course, began. So you're going to see people's unemployment benefits begin running out after the first of the year. So that's a critical component. Another component, of course, the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, that a lot of folks have availed themselves of. I know a lot of nonprofits have availed themselves of that program. That is included in the proposal. So hopefully that will be, a big part of that, to be able to help our nonprofits, help our business community, small particularly. And then, of course, another, I think it's 150 or so billion to state and local governments. And I know that that's been a contentious issue in Washington, but, we have a responsibility in state government to balance our budget, as NuPath does, or as the city of Woburn does as well. But the federal government has a flexibility to, of course, be able to dip in and spend money in a way that's different than we do. So we need them at this moment in time, I think, to cut the check, to get it back in the hands of state leaders, that we can support organizations like NuPath and all the other critical things we do, from educating our kids to taking care of our seniors to you name it. It's a critical program. So from my perspective, I am hopeful that they're going to get something done by the end of the month, and then hopefully once the new administration comes in, they take another hard look to figure out what type of support our economy needs to really find a way not just to get through COVID, but to come out of this stronger. And that means supporting economic growth opportunities in the Commonwealth and across our country.
Rich, you're great in explaining that. You had mentioned the extension of the unemployment and assistance for staff that have been laid off or furloughed. That applies to a large number of NuPath staff that, after COVID hit and the shutdown happened in March, April, their unemployment will be running out. These are friends of ours that we know that would be struggling if these benefits are terminated. The PPP program that you talked about, that would be in the form of the loans with the forgiveness factor that we've experienced in the first part of this year, possibly. I mean, you don't know, but these are some of the things that you said were in the budget. I'm wondering whether or not. And then the third part of that was you talked about the state money coming for the states. So you don't see, well, I don't know if I should go there, but some of the comments in the news leading up to this is not wanting to give money to states because of, to cover maybe reckless spending or, the fact that they haven't managed their budgets correctly. This is money that's going directly to states for the losses that they've experienced due to these expanded expenses, unforeseen, the kinds of testing programs and the resources that Massachusetts has put into trying to control this pandemic. And hopefully that will be something that comes our way. I want to ask you to go just a little deeper to the tea leaves with me in a minute, the minute that we have left with you. Trying to read into, you're a Democrat, obviously, and the Democratic Party with Biden won the election, and so we're going to be looking at inauguration in January. So many of us are looking thoughtfully and with interest at some of Biden's nominations or his suggested appointments for his different secretaries. Janet Yellen is one that's been in the news quite a bit lately. She's poised to become the Secretary of Treasury in the Biden administration. She's somebody that's had bipartisan support and has a long history of being a top economic advisor of the Clinton White House. She was recently the chairwoman for the Fed Reserve from 2014, 2018. And I've been hearing that she's got a special kind of commitment to people, to individuals, to workers, and understanding the importance of supporting that part of the economy in order to avoid or circumvent, something that would be a very long-lasting recession. Your thoughts on that? Is that something that has got widespread support, do you think? Is that something that you see as being a positive development out of the President-elect Biden?
So I certainly do. I mean, I think, as you said, I mean, sure, her resume speaks for itself. She's, somebody who's been in the fiscal policy arena for, well over 3 decades, from being out in San Francisco as part of the Federal Reserve Board to, being elevated to the federal seat to, take over from Ben Bernanke back, whatever that was. I don't know, gosh, maybe 5 or 10 years ago. So, she certainly brings, enormous qualifications to the job. So you would think that she would get the nod to be in that position. She clearly is a consumer advocate and somebody who I think would be looking out, as you described it, for the people, which is something that we need now more than ever. We need somebody who's going to lead fiscal policy, in my opinion, anyways, from a position of how do we help the average working person? How do we help families? How do we help seniors who are struggling? And hopefully their fiscal policy through her leadership will reflect those values. As the president-elect says, show me your budget and I'll show you your values. And and that's reflective, I think, of the Commonwealth, and hopefully reflective of the new administration come January 20th.
Governor Charlie Baker is, has got many relationships in politics, on Capitol Hill and throughout the country. And I just was wondering, I was imagining, maybe when he got word of Yellen's nomination, that he was like, yeah, or maybe he's like, oh yeah, I know Janet Yellen, we're like this, or I didn't know if there was some general celebrating, based upon that news, but it feels like just from my very distant perspective, that it's brought about some positive kinds of hope. Is there anything else that you see as being positive signs that could affect the economy of Massachusetts and the ability of our industry to just hang on a little bit longer until we can start to get this economy back up and running? Is there anything else that we could be celebrating?
Sure. I think two things. I think, from my perspective, I think it's critical that we're supporting your industry, particularly the next 6 months, because, we're going to get back to normal here. And we're going to, the services you guys provide, the services that NuPath provides as an organization is no less critical today than it was 1 year ago. And we need to make sure that we understand that, and that we continue to put you guys in a position to be able to come out of, these challenging times better and stronger, and ready to receive new clients and ready to provide the services that people need. So from my perspective, that's where our budget value should line up. And with regards to the Commonwealth at large, I think that one of the positives that's going to come out of this this kind of challenge of COVID is that you've seen Massachusetts life sciences companies be the leaders in the vaccine fight, to solve not just a national problem, but a global problem. And that speaks volumes about kind of the intellect and the education groupings that we have here in the Commonwealth, from our universities to the way we invest in attracting life science companies to come here. So all of those things are really, I think, bright spots for our state, and things that we should learn from as we go forward, as we figure out how to really invest and continue to attract the best and the brightest right here in Massachusetts, because we've been fortunate to be leaders in the education world for a long time. And for me, we're going to continue to do everything we can to make sure that we both invest in public education at the younger levels, but also continue to attract great companies and great minds from an employment standpoint of view here in the state.
So last two questions, and I'm going to let you go. I know you're so busy. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your optimism factor right now after some of the recent events, let's say since Election Day on, between 1 and 10, what would you say?
I feel very optimistic. I think that I think the country is hungry for hungry for a new day. I think the country is ready to take a deep breath and get past COVID, get past some of the division and the anger that perhaps exist in Washington. And I'd say, by the way, that I think we do a pretty darn good job here in Massachusetts of being a bipartisan state, as much as we're thought of as being a deep blue state. We've had predominantly a Republican governor for the last 30 years, with the exception of Deval Patrick for 8 years. But we've had a lot of Republican governors. We've had a lot of bipartisanship, I think, in pushing Massachusetts forward. and the country has something to learn, in my view, from the efforts we've made here in the Commonwealth. So, but I feel good. For me, tomorrow's a new day. The day after that's a new day. We're going to keep pushing forward and keep. You got to be positive in life, and I know how positive you are. I know the positivity that you bring to your team and to your organization, and that's something that others can learn from too. So, I appreciate your efforts, Dan.
Well, it helps to stay positive, and we have friends in high places like you. So I appreciate your your expertise, and you're somebody that's has been such a support to our community, to NuPath in particular, and support to me. I remember we talked before, but you were, I think, the first official sort of breakfast or meeting I had with anybody after I became CEO in 2013, when we met for breakfast in Wilbur Center, and it's been a privilege to watch you as you have continued to grow in your reach and influence, and I'm sure you're not done yet. I'll vote for you wherever you go. Last question. Matt Johnson's going to be on in a couple of minutes to talk to us about NuPath's preparedness for our vaccination protocols. This is something that, even though they haven't been in the hand, we have been, working on behind the scenes. Are you going to get the vaccine when it becomes available to you and your age group and your prioritization? Are you going to roll up your sleeve and take that shot?
Absolutely. I think that everybody should be rolling up their sleeve and taking that shot. The faster we get people vaccinated, the faster we're going to get through this. The faster we'll lower the number of potential carriers. And there's a lot of positives, I think, in my view, to taking it and making sure that we get past COVID as quickly as possible. So I certainly will be one of those folks.
Well, and hand to the Bible, I did not ask that in advance, so I was taking a little bit of a risk there, but I knew you probably have the right answer, and I appreciate that. We're going to be talking about the second half of this program today, but Richard Haggerty, Representative, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your service to NuPath, to our industry, and to the Commonwealth, and wish you well. We hope to have you again sometime soon. Thanks for being a guest today on NuPath Live.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Dan. Thanks to everybody.
All right, we'll talk to you. Bye-bye. And I should have said to him to say hello to his beautiful and talented and smart wife, Haley Haggerty, who happens to sit on the Waypoint board and our NuPath board of directors. And so I hope she's well as well. All right, guys. So if I were to say to you, you want the bad news or the good news first? Or when somebody asks you that question, what are you generally inclined to ask for first? I always go for the bad news first. I figure let's get it out there. Let's get it out of the way before we can talk about the good news. So what did I hear? I heard you say you wanted the bad news first. So let's start with the bad news. We know that we are in the middle of a pandemic. There's no secret there. Johns Hopkins University reported that as of today, 64.6 billion people worldwide have contracted COVID-19, and we are now worldwide at almost 1.5 million deaths. In the United States, we are at 13.9 million cases, and we are fast approaching 275,000 fatalities. That is huge. I should just let that rest for a minute. 273,746 people dead that are no longer with us, and that is due to COVID. According to the CDC, there were yesterday, December 2nd, there were 2,885 new coronavirus deaths, and we had nearly 200,000 new cases on a single day. 200,000. That's the size of a small city, just in one day. If we drill into Massachusetts and look just real briefly at that, we are now at 234,232 cases reported of COVID-19, and we are approaching 11,000 dead. This represents a 7% increase from where we were 2 weeks ago. And if we look at the map of Massachusetts, we can see, the shading shows up very well here, but Essex County, which is up the top there, Cape Ann, is in a high transmission, experiencing a high transmission rates, which means that our testing of our employees has had to increase for our programs that are in that area. And we are finding cases of staff that in many cases were asymptomatic. So the testing program that we have been implementing is working to helping to ferret out some of those cases that otherwise these people would be passing potentially on to the people we support in our homes and their fellow workers. We just got through Thanksgiving. The CDC reported in a recent statement the COVID-19 epidemic is worsening. Small household gatherings is an important contributor to the rise of cases. It will become more evident in the next 3 to 7 days, probably, just what the Thanksgiving holiday, the price of that will be. And we here at NuPath have seen an increase, and we are watching it carefully. Now, the questions come up before in the past, whether or not people wanting to know what our cases have been. When we bring up our second guest, Matt Johnson, he will have some of the specifics, if I remember to ask him. We're not having as tough a time as other organizations in our area, but we're prepared because people did still get together in Thanksgiving, even though Rich Haggerty did not, and I did not. I was just alone with my husband. But anyway, let's go to the good news now. We've been hearing a lot about vaccines, and they've been in the news as of late. The two contenders, or the two options that we're very excited about, are Pfizer and Moderna. They both claim to be 95% effective. And regarding the timetables, Lieutenant General Paul Ostrowski, who is part of Operation Warp Speed, stated recently that 100% of Americans that want the vaccine will have the vaccine by June, 6 months from now. Dr. Anthony Fauci, in a recent interview I was listening to last night, said that he believes by April, 30-year-old with no complicated conditions will be able to walk into a CVS or Walgreens by April and get the vaccine. So that is positive news. Now we're going to bring up Matt Johnson to talk with us about what NuPath is doing and how we are responding to these developments, what we've been doing in preparation. Because, hi, Matt.
Hello.
Welcome today to NuPath Live. It's great to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah.
Before we jump into this, I should just point out for anybody that may not be familiar with you, you've worked with us many years, approaching 20, I think, or maybe it's over 20. I can't remember off the top of my head. I should know it, but you're one of those guys that have been here forever.
Yeah.
You're a director of clinical supports, and you are now kind of heading up NuPath's task force on COVID-19 vaccination protocols and preparedness. We were approached by the state some weeks ago. I'm not even quite clear when, to begin to put together for the state a vaccine protocol that included the number of our staff, the people that we support that are in our programs, so that they could understand the necessary doses. We've since learned that we are in the first sort of wave, or we don't know if it's 1A or 1B, and maybe you can explain that to us in a minute, like what all that means. But I remember at the time when you and Ted and Sharon and other members of the task force were kind of starting to put these things together to submit to the state, it felt like we'd heard a lot about the vaccine coming, but we knew that, good thing they're doing this in advance because this is going to take a little time. We don't want to be flat-footed and wait until vaccine comes along before we start doing this stuff, because we want to hit the ground running. And but it still felt far off. So now, with us getting word from Walgreens that, hey, be ready, we could be calling you in a minute, or very soon anyway, maybe even before the end of December, to begin some of this, it feels very promising and it feels very exciting. We're going to talk in a minute about how we're going to ensure that all of our families and people supported and our staff are are willing to and understand the importance of this for us to get back to some normal rhythm here. But can you fill us in a little bit on where we are now as an organization, what we're waiting for, what this relationship is with Walgreens, and how it's all kind of placed together so that when we get the word that we're going to be ready to get this vaccine?
Sure, I can do that. Yeah, so about a month ago, we were contacted by the state and really the federal government through the state to provide some of that basic information, the numbers of staff and people we support that would be covered under the long-term care facilities to receive the vaccine. So we provided that information and we selected Walgreens. So Walgreens really comes from the CDC and the Department of Health and Human Services work together with pharmacies, some of the bigger pharmacies, to create what is called the it's called the Pharmacy Partnership for Long-Term Care Programs. And that partnership is allowing the pharmacies to work with the federal government to ensure that the distribution and the process by which the long-term care facilities receive the vaccination is safe. It meets the storage requirements for the cold chain storage, that the vaccines are distributed in as they need to be, as the manufacturer and the CDC requires. So that's it's really great that Walgreens has taken that first step and contacted us. It really means that they are prepared now to meet with us and administer the vaccines. When that will happen and what vaccine it will be is still unclear. I don't think that Walgreens knows at this point which vaccine they will have. Likely Pfizer.
They don't know if it's going to be the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine.
Pfizer. Yes.
But both of them are pretty similar from what you said and what we know, with a two series of shots, one and then another one 20 days later. I know Pfizer's requires this sort of subarctic frozen sort of environment. Do you know if the Moderna one does as well?
It does as well. Both of them require that cold chain storage, which is something that pharmacies in the past could not really meet. And Walgreens and the other pharmacies have partnered with the CDC to make sure they have that capacity. So they will come to us. They are going to do most of that legwork. They're going to bring the materials to us, set up, administer the vaccines, do the reporting to the federal government, and do all of that reporting of data that they need to do. That legwork they're going to do is going to make it great for us. When we actually get that call and we set up the clinic where they're going to come, that clinic is going to be, for us, much like we've run flu clinics in the past, or when we've run the testing clinics for the people we support and the staff. Pretty straightforward process for us, because we won't be administering the vaccine. We won't have to worry about storage. We won't have to worry about reporting that information. It'll really be us working with them around the physical location and then the consent.
Mm-hmm. Consent for the people that we serve, but generally our organization, getting people to those sites on those days, this is something people are going to want to miss, and the timing is pretty specific of it being 20 days later. So in theory, all those people that received the first vaccine, you're going to want them to all report back. And we're talking about, I don't know, I mean, as many as 400 or 500 people that's one way or another connected with NuPath between their employees and people served. That's a lot of vaccines to make sure that we're getting parts 1 and part 2, right? And that's all part of this, what we're trying to kind of lay out there now and get our heads wrapped around in advance of this.
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot, and we're going to have to be flexible as employees. We're going to have to be flexible that when we hear that date and time has come, that we're going to put other things aside to make sure we can make it and get the vaccination. In terms of the people we support, the nurses at NuPath will be reaching out to the families, probably starting next week, to have conversations about the vaccine and about whether families are interested in having the vaccine, whether they're in or out, or if they have questions about it. And that'll really be step 1. And then step 2 is gaining the actual consent.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. There's so much to talk about, but I'm trying to choose. So we're we're now on the brink of this hopeful development that could bring about an end to this very, very dark year that began in March. A year that has, caused extreme. It's been a tragedy, loss to so many families. The fear around catching this virus that for all this time there's been no cure, and it's many people have suffered, even if they haven't died. They've been very, very sick. And so now all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but now we're hearing that the vaccine's available, and I know there are we hear that in order for the United States to find ourselves free and clear of this, if you can call it that, by June, or so that kids and teachers get back to school next fall without worry, that we're going to have to get 75 to 85% of the U.S. population will need to be vaccinated in order for that to happen. And yet I know there are people that have strong opinions about vaccines and about their concern, whether that be about vaccines in general or about the safety of this vaccine that is so new and has not yet been tested. But we are going to do whatever we can in the next few weeks as we go into the holidays, into next year, in trying to educate people. Matt, you and I talked about finding a doctor or some health official that can come on and talk to us a little bit more about the vaccine itself, side effects and so forth, and things that might be concerning to families. But our position is that we are going to be strongly encouraging people to participate in this public health endeavor, because as Dr. Anthony Fauci said, he said, we want to be the dead end to this virus. We want to take the vaccine so when and if the virus comes to us, that we're not a stepping stone to somebody else, that we're going to say, this is where this spread ends with me if I've had the vaccine. And the more people that we could get to participate in that way, the better off we are going to be. Your thoughts on that? In general, you are heading up our task force here in this way. I'm assuming that you're going to be as close to the front of the line as you feel it's appropriate to be when the time comes, as I will be. Can you talk about why you feel that this is not something of grave concern to you?
Yeah, I do feel the same way you do, that I feel like it's an important step. The government and these companies have gone through a long process. It is quicker, but as has been pointed out by the CDC, the process itself, they started manufacturing the vaccines while the vaccines were in trial periods and the research being done. So the research was done and the vaccines are being made available to us in a way that, hopefully, as you said, it will end with us. When we have that vaccine, we will then be able to, to some degree, be the end of the virus when we encounter it. And I feel like, from the history has told us that, we've seen the cases of various pandemics and various other plagues and things where vaccines have been extremely effective. And, that's, in this case, I feel it's going to be very important for us to get the vaccine and to be able to move forward, not just as a country, but throughout the entire world.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, we know that, until we can get this pandemic behind us, I say behind us, we are going to be struggling as an organization one way or another, because we can't provide the services that we've been contracted to provide. If we're not providing day services to, a minimum threshold of people that could get here, we are going to be in grave financial straits, and it troubles me deeply to think about how some of the financial cuts that we've had to make are going to be affecting the livelihood of so many of our employees. Those are employees that still have jobs that we've not had to furlough or to lay off. A deep and troubling anxiety that just sort of hovering over all of us. in the sense that we love this organization and we love our mission, and I feel like so many people are, almost, we're part of the same family, and yet this uncertainty of how we're going to get through this. These vaccines are the key. These vaccines are the key for us getting back to normal, having more than one person on a 50-passenger van, and all the other things that we're hoping to get back to. So we are looking for full and enthusiastic cooperation, understanding that people may take some time to come to a point where they feel like enough people that they know are willing to take the plunge. I just want to be as public as I possibly can in saying that this is how we that I feel that we need to continue. So we are going to lean on you and your team to inform us and to let us know when things start to get real, as far as, okay, it's time, let's start scheduling staff to come in and get this vaccine. Right now, we don't. So many things are being debated, whether or not this is going to become a mandatory thing. There are many vaccines that are required. We have to get TB tests, before employment, and other things. Driving record, you have to, be able to prove a lot of things. So the state and the federal government does hold a lot of influence in many areas, and this, in my opinion, is no different in trying to predict and to ensure public health, safety, and wellness. So thank you for your service. Do you want to have any closing words for us as we wait down these last few weeks?
Yeah, again, I will encourage people to keep an eye out for the communication from Human Resources and from NuPath when that vaccine becomes available to us. We have been told by Walgreens that it's going to be a quick process. They're going to call us and schedule a coordination meeting. Once that meeting happens, about 7 days out, they will be coming with the vaccines. So we really need to be prepared to act quick. If the nurses contact a family member and they're asking about consent for that, that process, we need to act quick on that. We can't, have a situation where we expect that we're going to have a significant amount of time with a date pushed out months from now. It's going to happen really quick. So being prepared and being thoughtful. If you haven't looked at information, the CDC has stuff on their website. Walgreens has stuff as well that you can look at. And we also have some handouts, some tips and preparation materials that we're going to be providing as well to the people we support, the guardians, and the staff. And last,
there's some memes going around, and I was looking to see whether or not I could pull one up on my phone real quick. I was going to share it because they're not flattering to me. Somebody, this is what the first vaccine looks like. There's going to be a lot of, I'm not going to find it now. I'll look another time. But there's going to be a lot of disinformation. There's going to be a lot of stuff floating around. We want to try to provide information that is based in facts and science. And certainly, whatever we do is to ensure the health and safety. That's our primary goal and concern. Yeah. Matt Johnson. Finally, one last thing. Where do we stand now in number of cases? Just generally, because we have seen an increase, haven't we?
Yes, we have. I think we're seeing a similar increase, maybe not as dramatic as what the community is seeing across the country and in Massachusetts with the surge or spike in cases. Over the past about 6 weeks, we've seen 20 positive cases amongst our staff and people that work at NuPath. And more recently, in the past week, we have had 7 new positive cases. So for us, that is an increase. We have seen the numbers go up compared to what we were getting in the end of the summer and in the early fall. These numbers are up. So something to be mindful of, definitely. I think if people wear your masks, hunker down. I feel like this is the time. We have a period of time from now until getting vaccinated and from now until getting through the holidays. As you said, people that probably didn't use the best judgment about what they did during the Thanksgiving holiday or are planning things over the winter holidays that maybe aren't the best judgment. So I would say hunker down, keep yourself safe, wear your mask, wash your hands, limit your contact with people, because when we get to the other end of this, I think we'll all be thankful that we were safe through it.
So no over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house or anybody other's house. We want to stay on this side of the river and this side of the woods
Yeah.
and not expose ourselves. Matt Johnson, you're terrific. We are so fortunate to have you and your intellect and your dedication to NuPath, part of this organization. And I want to thank you for your time today and for sharing this information. We'll be talking to you more, I'm sure, in the near future. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Matt Johnson, everyone. He's a great mind here at NuPath, and we're very happy to have had him share a little bit. I want to just touch on one quick thing, and then we're going to wrap up. Matt was talking about people. Maybe we will see the consequences of people's decisions over the Thanksgiving holiday to perhaps be within doors of family members that they were not maybe not part of their immediate family. But I want to just emphasize here that the spread of this virus is so fierce that you could be somebody that is abiding by 99% of the time, the mask wearing, social distancing, and so forth, and still get it. I now have begun to hear of colleagues. In fact, I have one person in mind who is whip smart and extremely careful in all of my dealings with her since the pandemic began. And she recently was diagnosed with the coronavirus. And I think that should be no surprise. I think that more and more as this pandemic rages, as Dr. Anthony Fauci said, a surge upon a surge. We could be, some people say we could be beyond 450,000 dead by January until the vaccines get promulgated. It does not mean that you've done anything wrong or that you brought this upon yourself. In some cases, it might if you're being reckless and careless, but you can still get this virus, even being careful. And so with that in mind, it just begs absolute and heightened sense of awareness. And we just need to hang on, guys, a few more weeks, and we will be to the other side of this thing. I believe that. And because we are considered to be a high priority group of the population, that being the population that we serve and being considered as healthcare workers, we will have the privilege, many of us will have the privilege of having the option for this vaccine earlier than the greater public. And that's a privilege that I intend to honor and to take very seriously. Okay, good news, great news. And I know that we've got it in us. A couple more weeks, guys. Don't lose your fight now. We've come too far, and we got this. We will stay united, and we will get through this together and emerge better and stronger for it on the other side. So more to follow. More information on vaccines will be coming next week or the week after. Probably we're going to be talking a lot about that. So we look forward to hearing from you if you have comments in particular. I know there's people that have different opinions, but this is an opinion that we have based on science and data. And this is what we. So with that, I'm going to sign off and thank you all very much for being here today. It's part of NuPath Live. And wear your gloves, wear your masks, social distance. Let's do this. 2 more weeks, guys, and then the vaccine. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.